Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. So in the spirit of the last three somber videos, I guess this will be the third somber video in a row that I've done. This one is going to be very important. Now, I was inspired by a song by an artist called Jose Gonzales. The song is entitled Down the Line. I would encourage you to check it out after this video. It will provide you with some context for my thought process. A lot of you probably have more experience with grief and loss than I do. Now, I know I've lost a bunch of people there already because I'm not talking about guns and gear. But you better stick around for this because this might be one of those videos that you look back on when the crap actually does hit the fan and you think about. Because one of the most overlooked aspects of emergency preparedness is what are you going to do when something that you love most dearly in the world. I want you to imagine, I'm going to do a little mental exercise here. I want you to imagine something that you love the most in the world. I want you to imagine that being taken away from you in an instant, unexpectedly. Maybe you did everything you can to try to protect that person or that thing, and you weren't able to. Or maybe it just totally caught you off guard and you weren't able to intervene at all. How you react in those conditions is going to determine your own survival and potentially the survival of other people who rely on you. And it would be very easy for most of us, and myself included, to completely go off the rails and act on a whim, act on our emotions, not thinking clearly, and make very rash decisions which are going to put you and perhaps more importantly the rest of your group that you're trying to protect at risk. And I'm not saying that you're less important than your group. I'm just saying I know most people, myself included, there's people in your lives that you would put before you in a heartbeat. So this is something a lot of people don't think about. We just think that, we're never going to sustain any casualties whatsoever. And it's always going to be the opposing team that is going to lose out. And I don't think people have a game plan for if and when this happens. Now, I'm sure many of you have experiences with grief and loss. You lost a job. You lost, a lot of money on the stock market. Maybe you lost a family member. You lost a pet. But you know that there's some uncontrollable emotional outpouring, grieving that has to happen. It has to happen even amongst the toughest people out there, unless you're a total raving psychopath who has absolutely no empathy for anybody else. You are absolutely going to be in some way, for some period of time, incapacitated by grief and loss. So how you deal with it is really going to determine the outcome thereafter for you and those who rely on you. So when faced with this inevitable reality at some point in your life, because this doesn't have to be just about full-blown SHTF or a survival scenario where you're lost in the woods with your partner and maybe, something happens to them and you're left out there to your own devices. To get back, you can give up or you can press on. This is where having a belief system may well come in handy for some people. I'm not saying that you need to necessarily believe in a higher power, that you need to believe in an afterlife or anything like that, but it's going to be a true test of your survivalist character as to what you do when the things you love the most are taken away. That is a true test of a survivor, is what you do when times are bad, not when times are good. And I'm not saying that you need to be completely stoic and repress all of your emotions. No, you're going to have to let that out at some point, or else it's going to come out in a way which puts you and others in jeopardy. Having a plan to deal with the potential loss of life and the potential loss of things that have meaning to you. Because if and when, on a long enough timeline, if the crap were to hit the fan, particularly in the instance of some sort of pandemic scenario, there's probably going to be some people, who are affected. And this is magnified due to the factors I discussed in the last video I did about the obsession with happiness, and how, our society is so intent on being happy all the time, and when there's any slight deviation from that, it's totally uncomfortable for us and we have to medicate it. Well, when there's no medication to manage your depression, you potentially run the risk then of not just putting others in jeopardy, but you may decide that it's not worth going on anymore after doing that. And this is going to be challenging because on the one hand, that attachment to the things that you love is going to motivate you to do whatever you can when times get difficult to protect them and to look out for them and make sure that they are taken care of. At the same time, that level of attachment can lead to a debilitating grieving, which is going to make you more vulnerable to the risks of the post-collapse world. Now, from a strict psychological standpoint, if I was to lose the thing that mattered most in my life, how would I go on? Well, I would grieve. I would allow myself permission to get whatever I had to out of my system before making any serious decisions which are going to impact myself and the rest of the group. And I would also assess my thought process, because at the end of the day, our experience on this planet is subjective, and our thoughts determine the next course of action. So if I'm not clear in my thinking, then my emotions are going to be screwed up and my actions are going to follow. My actions are not going to be appropriate, and they're not going to be well thought out, and they're going to lead to a lot of problems down the line, as Jose Gonzales talks about in his song. Don't let the darkness eat you up. There's always hope, no matter how bad things get. So long as you're alive, there's always hope, man. And that's the truest words I've ever spoken on this channel, that no matter what situation you're in, I don't care. All it takes is one flash of light to completely chase out the darkness. And what we need to understand also is that change is inevitable. Change is certain. We are all going to pass on someday. Everything that we have, that we own, is all going to pass through our hands someday. Everything that we covet, that we are attached to, is going to go back to the earth from which it came. So knowing this and anticipating that this is a natural part of life, this is a natural part of our existence. What comes in goes out. It's just the way it is. So coming to terms with that reality will better prepare you for the inevitable loss, because we're all going to lose. No one gets out of here alive. Another thing to watch out for is that if you have a lot of alcohol saved up, because alcohol, that's going to last a long time. It's a great prep to have on hand. But if you have a lot of it, and one of these things happens that I'm talking about, chances are one of your first reactions is going to be to have a drink. And it's just what people do. It's a form of escape. But the problem with that is this. Number one, it's going to make you extremely vulnerable. And obviously this is going to be a big security risk, because you're going to be intoxicated. You're going to need your five senses to be fully functioning at all times in those situations like that, where you don't want your security and your operational security compromised. And if you look for a way out like that, what's going to happen is that you're just going to make the problem worse. You're going to feel crappier and crappier. You're never going to go through the natural biological process of grieving if you don't allow yourself to grieve, if you just try to escape, which is what happens to a lot of people. They get stuck in time. They're trapped in a moment in time, and they continue to try to escape that moment because they don't like dealing with those feelings. And such is the name of the game in the modern society, where we don't have to anymore. We can just, take a drug, forget about it. Unfortunately, the problem's always still there. And until you stare it in the face, until you go through those natural 5 stages of grief and loss, denial, bargaining, anger, depression, acceptance, it's always going to be waiting for you to deal with. Maybe your crops don't grow one year. Maybe your chickens catch some kind of disease and they all die. But what's really going to sting is when the things that you love the most pass on. And I think this is the most number one overlooked strength that we as preppers and survivalists forget about. It's a person's ability to deal with loss. Because if you can't do that, it's absolutely going to take you down with it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. And by the way, we got a lot of other practical, fun videos coming up on this channel. But it's all about night and day. It's all about the cycles. It's all about up and down. There's a summer, there's a spring, there's a winter, there's a fall. So right now we're in the dead set of winter. It's a contemplative time. So that's why I make videos like this for you to think about. And they are very relevant to your emergency preparedness planning. So give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, guys. Canadian Prepper out.